Thank you once again for making Locked On Cougars your first listen of the day. Hope you're doing well on this Thursday. All right, so BYU has aspirations this year as a football program of getting it right and making a run at the Big 12 championship, and more importantly, a chance to play for the college football playoff. Now, let's go back and talk about the college football playoff since its inception. Remember in 2020, our good friend Jeff Hansen and the tinfoil hats that he would wear, and the nonsensical answers we got during that season about BYU's rise to prominence, but being essentially shut out of any chance to play in one of the big bowls, play in the college football playoff that year. Let's fast forward to this past season. BYU rose as high as number 6 in the college football playoff rankings, but as soon as they suffered that loss to Kansas, the college football playoff committee, led by then committee chairman Ward Manuel, dropped BYU like a stone. Why am I saying all this? Why am I delving into all this? Because it feels like it's a kind of a knife in the back for those of you who have been stung by this, I'm sure. Good news. If you want to put in your tinfoil hat, BYU finally has what I would call an ally in that chair as the college football playoff committee chairman. That would be none other than Baylor AD Mack Rhoades. Yes, we have a Big 12 sitting athletic director who is going to be the selection committee chair for the 2025 football season. The Big 12 is going to have its best representation in the college football playoff meeting room that it's ever had. I'm not here to propagate major controversy or conspiracy theories, but the nonsensical answers we got from guys like Ward Manuel last year that were talking out of both sides of their mouth when it came to BYU, it screams that they don't understand what BYU is about. More importantly, they don't want BYU to be a part of their party, and they were trying to find a way essentially to cast BYU to the side. And the knock on BYU was that they made the committee's decision easy by losing back-to-back games late in the season to Kansas and Arizona State. This year, though, Mack Rhoades, as I feel like, would be a proponent of BYU's and wouldn't be jackpotting around, to use the Jerry Sloanism of yesteryear. I think Mack Rhoades, if given the opportunity to promote Big 12 teams, whether it's a BYU, his own Baylor squad, Kansas State, any of these teams that could be near the top of the Big 12 conference and make a run at a college football playoff berth, having a guy like Mack Rhoades in that chair who will be speaking to the media weekly on those conference calls, I see this as an absolute home run. I think it's a major positive. And in fact, I think it may be finally the proverbial leg up that BYU needs to break through if they can handle their business. BYU can't expect to go 9-3 and play in the college football playoff. That just won't fly. BYU is going to have to be at worst 11-1. It feels like they have to make a darn near perfect run through this season if they want to live their dreams of playing once again for the Big 12 tournament championship and then punch their ticket to the playoff. And you've got to look absolutely sterling while you're doing that. You can suffer a loss, and I look at that game right after the Utah game when you travel back to Ames, Iowa. Heaven forbid you get stuck in another blizzard out there when you make that trip in late October. But bigger point you made is that feels like it's a scheduled loss. If you can handle your business beyond that, go 11-1, heck, if you were to handle that and go 12-0, yeah, then you would absolutely be in the mix for the college football playoff. But having a guy like Mack Rhoades speaking to the media, I think he has a very clear understanding of what BYU is all about, because Baylor, much like BYU, is a religiously affiliated university. Mack understands that there are parameters and there's certain things that BYU just won't do, but also that BYU has major positives about it. So I like the fact that Mack Rhoades is on this committee. The other new additions to the committee, pretty inconsequential in my mind. Mark D'Antonio, the former head coach at Cincinnati, Michigan State. I think we mostly associate him with Michigan State and obviously the Big Ten there. Damon Evans, athletic director at University of Maryland, another Big Ten representative. Ivan Maisel, who's a former sports writer for the Atlanta Constitution, Sports Illustrated, Dallas Morning News, Newsday, ESPN, and On3. I think he could be a proponent in certain circumstances for a program like BYU, because Ian has come out to BYU when they were an independent, to BYU Football Media Day. He understands what BYU offers. Chris Massaro, the athletics director at Middle Tennessee State, he's the G5 representative. And then Wesley Walls, a former All-American tight end from Ole Miss, are now being added to the College Football Playoff Committee. So I look at these different selections and the additions because you look at who is exiting the room: Chet Gladchuck, Jim Grobe, Ward Manuel, Will Shields, and Kelly Whiteside. Their terms have expired. Okay. None of them screamed Big 12 proponents or Big 12 backers. But I look at this and I think that what they have on this committee now should, in theory, help the Big 12 and by extension, help BYU if they prove worthy of having an opportunity to go out there and play for a national championship. The other returning members are Chris Alt, obviously worked at Nevada for forever. Randall McDaniel, who's from Arizona State, another Big 12 proponent there. That's nice to have that. Mike Riley, the former head coach at Oregon State and the University of Nebraska. David Saylor, who is Miami of Ohio's athletic director. Carla Williams, University of Virginia athletic director, and Hunter Yurichek, University of Arkansas. So there is nice representation across the country here. Feels very balanced. But to have the guy, the talking head, the figurehead, the leader of the bunch representing the Big 12 conference, I'm looking forward to this. I'm not here, like I said, to propagate anything and saying that Mack Rhoades will ramrod a program like BYU through if he has to into the college football playoff, because I think he is about as level-headed as an AD as I've ever heard. He goes on Sikkim 365, and I think it's just 365 radio with the guys down there in Waco often, and he comes off as a very level-headed individual, but he's also fiercely loyal to people that he likes, and I've never heard him speak ill of BYU. Maybe he harbors something against the Cougars, and that will come out as this season progresses if they are in the mix. But I think having a Big 12 proponent, maybe one of the chief proponents, because Mack's been at Baylor for a long, long time and was part of the committee that helped select BYU and the other new members that joined the conference when they did. Having a guy like that leading this group in the college football playoff committee, you could do a lot worse. And I think BYU, once again, if they can handle their business, if they can make that run towards a national championship, this guy speaking to the national media, I don't believe will be talking out of both sides of his mouth, trying to say one thing while essentially denigrating another thing. I couldn't stand, for example, Ward Manuel propping up SMU, but then throwing BYU out with the bathwater when we saw a head-to-head matchup between those two programs, and one of them beat the other one. But hey, I digress. I just, the bigger point to be made here is I think having a guy like Mack Rhoades leading the college football playoff selection committee will be a net positive for a conference that absolutely needs some extra juice when it comes to combating the storylines with the Big 12 and the SEC.